Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a topic that's both fascinating and a little bit surprising: famous scientists and their big mistakes. Now, we all know that scientists like Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton, and Marie Curie have made incredible contributions to our world. They're basically rock stars in the world of science, right? But here's the thing. Even these genius-level minds were human. And that means they weren't perfect. Yep, you heard me right, geniuses can and do make mistakes. So, grab your favorite snack and get comfy because we're about to explore some of the most surprising goof-ups made by the greatest minds in history. Let's get into it. Number 10. Nikola Tesla's short flight. Nikola Tesla had one of the smartest minds ever, and his work greatly influenced the modern world. He was also known as a bit of a mad scientist. In his later years, Tesla was famous for making or claiming to make very strange and impractical inventions, like an earthquake machine or a death ray. But his most laughable idea came from one of his early experiments. As a child, Tesla was always curious and liked to test his ideas. Once, he noticed that hyperventilating made him feel light and wondered if it could help him defy gravity. He took an old umbrella, climbed onto a barn roof, hyperventilated until he felt dizzy, and jumped off. His flight was very short. He crashed, lost consciousness, and his mother had to put him to bed. He spent the next several weeks recovering. Number 9. Thomas Edison's concrete housing. In 1877, Thomas Edison, who was a rival of Nikola Tesla, found black sand near Long Island. For the next few years, he tried to find a better way to get iron ore from this sand. He wrote about his new method and filed several patents, but many people doubted it would work. One newspaper even mocked his efforts, calling it Edison's folly. Edison was determined to prove them wrong, so he used his own money to start a new company to process the ore. Sadly, it was a big failure. His method was less efficient than the old one. The machines kept breaking down because of dust, and some workers died when a building collapsed. Then Edison had another idea to save the operation: concrete housing. He wanted to make entire houses, including fixtures, furniture, and even pianos, out of concrete poured into molds. He thought this would revolutionize low-income housing and found a businessman to invest in the project. However, the cheap housing turned out to be very expensive. Thousands of molds were needed just for the house, and hundreds more for everything inside. Even though each mold cost a lot, 11 houses were built. None were sold. Number 8. Benjamin Franklin's electrocuted turkey. It's well known that Benjamin Franklin was very interested in electricity. What's less known is that he experimented with electricity in animals. Franklin spent a lot of time in his backyard electrocuting animals to show various electrical phenomena. For instance, his electric spider experiment demonstrated how electricity could make a dead creature move. Later, he moved on to live animals and found a new use for electricity cooking. Franklin started hosting parties where he served electrocuted turkey. In a letter to his brother, John, he described a party in 1750 that went wrong. Franklin wanted to show his guests the electrocution process, but as he was preparing, a sudden flash of light surrounded him. He fell to the ground unconscious, but luckily had no long-term effects, except for a bruised ego. The turkey, however, was unharmed. Number 7. Fred Hoyle's steady-state theory. Einstein wasn't the only one who thought the idea that the universe had a beginning was fiction. Fred Hoyle was probably its biggest opponent. Fred Hoyle was a brilliant scientist. His work on how heavy elements form in stars has been incredibly valuable. However, he strongly believed in a steady-state universe, and for a time, many people agreed with him. Hoyle and George Gamow, a Russian physicist who supported Lemaitr's ideas, often clashed over their different theories. Hoyle won much of the public over not with evidence, but with his charisma. He was a great speaker, very confident, and made many media appearances to promote his views. Ironically, he contributed to the Big Bang theory by giving it its name. He called it the Big Bang to make it sound silly and discredit it. Despite his efforts, Hoyle's steady-state theory was eventually disproven. Meanwhile, evidence for the Big Bang kept growing until it became the widely accepted explanation for the origin of the universe. Number 6. Einstein's lost hypothesis. Albert Einstein's contributions to the modern world and our understanding of it are matched by few, if any, other scientists. Still, he wasn't right all the time. One questionable belief he had was that the universe is eternal. Einstein firmly believed that the universe always existed and always would, even as the Big Bang theory started to gain acceptance during his lifetime. He even met Georges Lemaitre, the Belgian priest and astronomer who first proposed the theory. When Einstein heard Lemaitr's idea, he said, "Your calculations are correct, but your grasp of physics is abominable." Einstein didn't just disapprove of Lemaitr's theory. He tried to come up with an alternative. A recently discovered manuscript from 1931 shows that Einstein explored the idea of a steady-state universe, similar to later theories that opposed the Big Bang. Number 5. Linus Pauling's triple helix. Linus Pauling had many achievements, especially in biology and chemistry. He is the only person to win 2 unshared Nobel Prizes, showing how highly the scientific community valued his work. In the early 1950s, he was working on something that could have earned him another prize, the structure of DNA. Pauling was in a race because he had competition. Francis Crick and James Watson were also working on a model of the DNA strand. They eventually won the Nobel Prize for their double helix model, which is now well known. When Pauling saw their work, he admitted they were right and he was wrong. His model was incorrect for a simple reason. It included a triple helix. He also made a basic mistake in his calculations, and the nucleic acid molecule in his model was not actually an acid. Number 4. Edwin Hubble's botched calculation. Edwin Hubble's contributions to astronomy are unmatched. Before his work, we knew very little about the universe beyond the Milky Way. Thanks to Hubble, we now understand that our galaxy is just a small part of a possibly infinite universe that might even be expanding. After this discovery, Hubble aimed to find out the age of the universe. In 1929, he calculated the rate of expansion, known as the Hubble constant, and worked backward to estimate the age of the universe. According to Hubble, the universe was 2 billion years old. However, this estimate was quickly proven wrong. By the 1930s, scientists knew that the Earth was between 3 and 5 billion years old. Clearly, the Earth couldn't be older than the universe, so Hubble's calculation was incorrect. Number 3. Galileo's tidal theory. Galileo was never one to shy away from controversy. Even if he knew one of his ideas would be heavily criticized or mocked, he was still willing to present it. This is why he is famous today for supporting Copernicus's idea of heliocentrism. Despite strong opposition from the Catholic Church, it took the Church 350 years to admit its mistake. However, Galileo is quite lucky that his tidal theory is not well known today. He was wrong from the start, as he tried to explain the motion of the tides based on the false premise that they were caused by the Earth's rotation around the Sun. Since his theory was based on this incorrect idea, it was doomed to be wrong. What makes it worse is that Galileo was aware of the possibility that the Moon could influence the tides. In 1882, Lord Kelvin wrote about the tides and mentioned Galileo only briefly. According to Kelvin, Galileo dismissed the idea of the Moon causing the tides as a lamentable piece of mysticism. Number 2. Newton's wrong number. Isaac Newton's The Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica is widely considered one of the most important scientific books ever written. And for good reason. It has been studied, referenced, and quoted countless times in the 300-plus years since it was first published. That is what makes it even more astounding that it contained a simple mathematical error all this time. The error occurs in Proposition 8, where Newton presents the formula for calculating the mass of known planets, which involves an angle formed by 2 particular lines. In his calculations, he works out the angle to be 10 seconds, but later, he mistakenly plugs in 11. The error is only superficial, having no consequences, but it's amazing that it was somehow overlooked for hundreds of years. Out of all the people who examined Newton's writings, many of whom were geniuses in their own right, it was a 23-year-old student named Robert Garisto who discovered the mistake. Number 1. Darwin and heredity. Although Charles Darwin's theory of evolution is widely known, it has continued to develop since he first introduced it. One issue with Darwin's original theory was related to heredity. During Darwin's era, many people had incorrect ideas about how traits were passed from parents to offspring. For instance, most 19th century biologists thought that traits were inherited through blood. Darwin himself shared this belief, which was common at the time, that traits from parents were mixed together in their offspring. The problem with this idea of blended inheritance was that it contradicted Darwin's own theory of natural selection. If traits were simply blended, they wouldn't change over generations as natural selection suggested. Even in Darwin's time, another scientist named Gregor Mendel was uncovering the true nature of heredity and how it works. It seems Darwin just never learned about Mendel's findings. And there you have it, folks, 10 fascinating blunders from some of the greatest minds in history. It's incredible to see that even geniuses can make mistakes. Remember, science is all about trial and error, and every misstep is a step closer to the truth. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below on which blunder surprised you the most. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you never miss out on our latest explorations into the world of science and history. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious.